Hello, everyone. This is Seewing Yi. Hello to my Yi Network members and our YouTube subscribers as well. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you our new network partner, Jim Shields and Southern Impression Homes from Florida. Jim came highly recommended by our friend and our primary network loan advisor, Richard Advani, who had not only done hundreds of investment loans for Jim's investor clients over the past 10 years, but also bought a number of rental properties from Southern Impression Home himself. Now, Jim's company is a full service, one-stop shop turnkey provider that has a decade-long successful track record of helping out-of-state remote and passive mom-and-pop investors achieve generational wealth. Furthermore, Jim's company provides a build-to-rent investment model for investors. This means Jim provides cash flow new builds, single-family homes, duplexes, and fourplexes quads located in the path of growth in affordable submarkets in various strategic locations in Northeast Florida, West Central Florida, and Southwest Florida. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Jim Shields.
It's great to be here today, Seewing. Thank you. And again, Richard Avante has been a friend of mine for over 10 years. We've done hundreds of loans together. We've also done properties together. Richard has bought a number of properties through our new construction model. He's been not only a friend, a client, but also a primary lender for us. It's definitely a good mix. My name is Jim Shields. I'm a partner with Southern Impression Homes. My wife and I wrote something last year called the Passive Income Playbook, and it's about how to leverage build-to-rent real estate to buy back your time and create a legendary family life. And for me, Seewing, a legendary family life simply means all the things I dreamed of doing as a child and my parents couldn't do, I wanted to do with my family. And that's what real estate has been able to provide for me and give me the time to do it. My life has always been about the adventure. I love spending cold summers up in Nova Scotia and warm winters in our house in Costa Rica. And real estate is what's made that happen. I always wanted to be able to do the things that my father didn't get to do. I lost my dad about 2 years ago. He struggled his whole life with money. That is until I was able to retire him many years ago. But through most of his adult life, he struggled with money. And I always wanted to be able to do the things I dreamed of, whether it was keep surfing or visit my roots. I'm big into family history. So here's the picture of my great-grandfather's home in Ireland that's been in my family for 142 years. I joke, Seewing, that's our longest buy and hold in the family for all of our real estate investors. Got to trace back and stand at my great grandmother's grave, which was a very emotional thing for me. But all these things were paid for by real estate. These are I could have never had the time, even running the company without my own real estate investments. And finding out about my family history again, which is just one of my hobbies, I saw that this little store in Ireland is where my entrepreneurial roots and actually real estate investing began with my great grandfather. My family takes up a lot of my time, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Yes, I have a big business, but I know that I was taught by a mentor, 18 years of 18 summers goes by quick, and then they become adults. So I always wanted to make the most of this time, and real estate helped me do that time. Real estate also helped my wife and I create a book about family. I'm proud to say 2 weeks ago, our third edition of the Family Board Meeting was released, and we went to #1 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And all of this, every bit of it, started and was paid for by our real estate portfolio. Going back to my own dad, he had a dream. He had this Hallmark card on my mom's table, on their dresser in their room, my whole life growing up. And it was this couple in a white outfit walking down a Caribbean beach. And my dad had written, we're going to go some places like this with our family someday, but someday never came. My dad struggled with money his whole life. That is until I got into real estate myself and I was able to retire my parents. And for the last 15 years of his life, he got to do these things, but a lot of his life, he wasn't able to. I actually also, dad being a big part of my story, I was able to donate a kidney with it to him 10 years ago. That was all funded by real estate. If I didn't have my real estate in place, I could have never done something that severe to be able to save his life and at least get an extra 10 years with him, which I greatly cherished. My family, again, we were able to grow our family through our real estate portfolio. Here we are in front of a judge 2 years ago. 40 friends in the courtroom, adopting our fifth child. We decided one more was going to be good for us. And again, all of this was made possible by real estate. We do service operations in several different countries, building houses, working in orphanages, just something that's dear to my heart. Again, our real estate is paid for every dime of that. Now, my promise to you, the reason I tell you all this is because it's never about the real estate. It's about what the real estate can provide. Over 20 years experience and almost $1 billion in deals, we're going to be able to show you how to build a passive income, active lifestyle for you and your family. And I like to show, well, people say, how did you get to over $40,000 a month in passive income from your investments? And again, a lot of people say, I want to make sure that I'm listening to someone who has been there, done that. So I have my transactional real estate business building houses. But as you can see, this is from my CFO, where some of you might know. I was averaging at the end of December about $42,692 a month in passive income from my real estate. And that is a building block that you can follow. And I think you can do it in a fraction of the time that I did, because I didn't have all of the assistance of teams like you have today, especially with the new construction turnkey system. Now, our sweet spot at Southern Impression Homes is residential real estate, single family, duplexes, and quads. So you can get that great residential financing from Richard. Again, he's done hundreds of loans for us. And also, these are in high demand. We know that especially through the pandemic, these lower densities rented really well and had great growth, not only in rent, but in value as well. Right now, Southern Impression Homes, so you know, has over $637 million worth of property under asset management. It produces about $44 million a year in annual recurring revenue for our investors, which has created almost $160 million in equity for our investors. There's over 850 current investors working with us, and that grows daily. We have over 7,500 units developed and growing, over 8,000 residents living in our homes, and over 170 employees on our team to help make this all happen. We did about $182 million in sales last year. That was, again, a big growth from 10 years earlier when this was just an experiment, Seewing. We started with about $3 million worth of property that we built as an experiment. It's great to see where I was able to go. And I think the principles that we followed are why, and we'll go over those in a minute. We figure with all of the work we've done with different families, for the investors, for the tenants, we've impacted over 375,000 families. And we feel with the track we are on right now in Florida, especially having 6,000 more lots in inventory now, we're going to impact over 1 million families with our build to rent program. Now, we have 10 simple principles that we follow that are going to help people steer the right way, which I'm sure you teach, Seewing, and something that are going to save the headaches that I and my wife went through while building our own personal portfolio. First thing is we look to invest for the long term. If you're looking to flip houses or be in and out in 6 to 8 months, that can be a great short-term strategy, but we're not for you. What we look to do is we build, the most wealth that I've built is by holding a property long-term and looking long-term with it. These are the long-term fundamentals that we follow, and the properties that we build, the property portfolios that we build for our investors are a long-term approach. And when people look to the long-term, and we'll show you some case studies, these are one of the best ways to build an incremental, sustainable, passive income. Now, second thing is real estate makes money in 5 different ways. Cash flow is important. But cash flow is not the only thing that I look at. There's 5 different things I look at that our sales counselors will go over with you that you're able to make money on as well. And when you look at the whole 5 picture, it's a totally different approach. If I only looked at cash flow, I would have gone and bought really cheap houses in the Midwest. And that's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people do that. But for me, I wanted areas that were poised for growth and also had cash flow. That's why I landed in Florida. And you want to invest in good areas and good neighborhoods. I know there's a lot of back and forth on this, Seewing, but I've found that going to tougher neighborhoods don't work as well. When I've looked at more sustainable, for more long-term approach, for easier paths to wealth, good areas and good neighborhoods are one of the best ways to go. And I also avoid fixer-uppers. Now, we all like to sit and watch the shows on TV. Those are very exciting. But rehab surprises, and again, I've done over 1,000 rehabs. When you do those, they're not that exciting. Fixer-uppers can create something called deferred maintenance that continues. And again, I own a lot of older houses, but I know that from the older houses, my maintenance and repairs are going to be higher. And I've also learned if you get an old home and you don't fix it up right in the beginning completely, your maintenance and repairs can eat away at your profits for a very long time and take away a lot of what you're trying to create. We also believe that experts should manage your property. Seawing, I don't like managing my own property. I don't enjoy it. I think it's the cheapest part of the game with the biggest potential headache. So I'd rather make sure that I subcontract that out to someone else. So I encourage you, if you all want to self-manage, you can. 90+% of our people use our management company because they see the expertise. They see that we have systems in place. And I believe that's one of the keys to long-term buy and hold real estate. So I encourage you to work with experts in property management. And remember, your properties are not for charity. I learned this lesson very hard many years ago, Seawing. When I bought my first properties in Bakersfield, California, and I was managing them myself, I got very emotional with them. And this isn't to be cruel to anyone, but I took a lot of excuses for tenants that I probably didn't screen properly either. And I found that they weren't paying me rent, but I was paying my mortgage. And I like to give to other charities. As I showed you, we're involved with orphanages in Guatemala and building houses in Mexico and Costa Rica. If I give charity in my rentals, I can't do those things. And my mortgage is still due at the end of the month. So I always encourage people to remember that your rentals and your charity work are completely separate. And one thing that helps me with that is I let experts manage my property so I don't get that emotionally attached to that outcome. Also, this is really important right now. In the last 3 years, things have changed. If you want to invest your money into real estate, I think you have to look to see if it's landlord friendly or landlord unfriendly. Because if push comes to shove and there comes a long period of time where you cannot collect your rent in states where they are just very favorable towards the tenant, you put yourself at a great risk. And this isn't a political thing, but I just look to see, is a state more friendly to landlords or more friendly to tenants? Florida is one of the most landlord-friendly places in the world, I think. If a tenant doesn't pay, they can have to leave within 40 days, opposed to other states where it's several months and months. And that can be really hard on your cash flow and also not give you the purpose of why you're doing real estate. The real estate's there to support you, not the other way around. You want to plug into a support team. That's why we're talking to you, Seawing. That's why Richard started working with us years ago. He's a great lender, but he didn't want to have a second job besides his mortgage company. He wanted to have investments. So he plugged right into our support team. And if you're looking to not have a second or third job, you want a support team. Otherwise, you create low-paying jobs for yourself. Do you really want to screen each tenant? Do you really want to handle each maintenance repair? Do you really want to follow up every time that the tenant is late? Do you really want to figure out how to get land entitled and approved to be able to build on it? That's where our support team comes in. Our support team can take all of those headaches off of your plate without you creating a second or third job. And I'd encourage you, no matter who you work with, and Richard is great, and I know Seawing, you work with people, only work with build-to-rent companies if they're building new construction homes for investors with a profitable track record. Do they own their own properties? Have they built more than 500 properties? Because I think under 500, they still could be great, but know that they're still in the startup phase of getting the mechanics of how this works. So you really want to look to work with people who are in the build to rent companies and profitable track record. And I encourage you, of course, and I know we've talked about this, Seawing, is never stop learning. I am constantly learning, going to more classes, listening to more podcasts on the real estate business. And that's something we continue to share with our investors. Anything we're learning on the market, whether it's about interest rates, inflation, landlord laws, new construction techniques, we're going to share with you. Now, who is our typical investor? Our typical investor is the person who wants us to find the deal for them, help them get financing, and then manage the whole deal process of getting it built and getting it managed. I'll tell you a little bit about a couple of people. So Tom Toussaint is a client of ours. He was in the Air Force, ran a mortgage company. He retired just 2 years ago from our rental properties. He jokes that our last investment property helped pay for his new airplane. His hobby, although mine's surfing, Tom loves flying. That Air Force in him has never left him. And not only was he able to keep that hobby, but you can see his wife, Kathy, here on the left, she needed a kidney donation. He wanted to be out of work so that he could be fully focused on that. So him and I had that in common, the thing with my father and his wife, and he's done very well. Tom started with this simple duplex about 5 years ago. He had a purchase price of $314. The property's now worth $519. The original rents were $2,400. Now they're over $3,400. And this was all an initial investment, getting a loan from someone like Richard for $88,000 into the property. Now, Tom went in to build a small portfolio, which most of our clients do. As I told you, Seawing, our most successful clients usually buy between 3 and 7 properties. Tom went all in after that first property. And you can see these numbers, and we can get slides of these to everyone out there. You can see the incremental growth that he's had since 2019 investing into these properties. And today, Tom is at over $1 million in equity with his properties, and his cash flow is over $11,000 a month. That's what our new construction model has created from him. On something very cool, when I showed you guys that picture of me in the courtroom with my new adopted daughter, Tom and I had stayed in touch on different family things. He wrote to me that day to find out about the adoption. And I said, "How are you doing? And how's your wife?" And he wrote this text. If you can see that, he wrote, "I retired from Fairway Mortgage yesterday. You played a big part in allowing that to happen. Thank you." This is why we do what we do. How do we help people like Tom and you buy back your time, create that legendary family life? And it's always through investment, passive income, rental real estate. Dr. Amina Goodwin. Amina's got a great story. Immigrated to the US many years ago, became a successful doctor in internal medicine in New York City, and has a young family, and she wanted to supplement the income so she'd have something to fall back on. She doesn't want to get out of being a doctor. She's a great doctor. She loves it, but she does want some space, and she does want some other income coming in, not dependent on her career. Amina went in and bought 3 properties pretty quickly, and they all had similar growth, where we're looking purchase price, the current price, and you can see how both the values and the rents have climbed on all of her properties. And Amina actually went in and bought a few more properties on top of this. Today, her cash flow is a little under $6,000, and it might actually be over $6,000 because these are a few months old. Her equity is a little over $800,000. Again, how were they able to do this, Seewing? All they were able to do was follow our system to get into our single family duplex and quad properties, build a small portfolio, let us manage it. And then as the properties grew in value and in equity, they were able to refinance sometimes out and put it into more investments or to pay something else off. And now they use these portfolios as an alternative source of income to support their families.
Jim, sounds very impressive.
We just wanted to make sure that you have that. Again, we do have a book coming out this fall called the Passive Income Playbook, Seewing. We'll make sure everyone in your group gets a free copy of it. But again, it does expand into this conversation of what we were talking about, of how do you actually leverage into rental real estate? How do you make it truly passive? And the new construction model has been one of the best ways I've found in 24 years.
Absolutely, Jim. This is a great presentation. It's our core investment philosophy, our core value within my network and myself is very similar. I've been to over 50 countries so far in my life, and I have at least 50 countries to go. Just like your family, we love to travel, and real estate so far has provided me the opportunity to do these kind of things. And my adult children also have the traveling bug. Ever since they were very small, we take them everywhere, all over the world. They continue to travel, they enjoy life, and that's what's all about. Create a real estate portfolio that will sustain your life. You can focus on energy on people you care and love, your family, your friends, immediate family members, your legacy, generational transfer. Wealth. And also, I love your top 10 investing methodologies. To me, it's 10 commandments of real estate investing. You can use that narrative. Your core value is similar to ours, and our investors are very, very busy. We have engineers and healthcare professions. Members from our organization over the years have purchased Turnkey properties from a network, although we promote other markets in the U.S. as well. But to be honest, Florida has been and always will be my number one real estate investment strategy, because personally, I purchased a number of rental properties in Florida over the past 20 years. And in fact, I closed a recent property a couple of months ago. I closed escrow on a single family home in Ocala. Investors need to understand, regardless of what's happening right now, the challenging real estate market, what have you, have to focus on investor focus on their unique goals. They have to just ignore all the negative headlines out there. I like your investment philosophy because I know Florida so well. Your location that you're promoting is the path of growth. Venture into the sub-markets, into the suburbs, beyond the primary metro, similar Central Florida, Southwest Florida, Northeast Florida, same thing, because as prices getting elevated over the years, I remember when we used turnkey providers that helped us invest in Florida in the past. And I remember a mere 5, 6, 7 years ago, a single family home in Orlando was only like $150,000. Now they're like $400,000. The number does not make sense. Therefore, as we see job growth and population growth and the path of growth and the massive migration of people all over the country, not just retirees, but millennials are migrating into Florida ever since the post-pandemic. This trend of migration into Florida, which is the fastest growing state in the country, Florida, continues to receive a lot of population growth.
I agree with everything you said. I'd like to go into a little bit of market fundamentals and some actual properties that are available.
On this particular presentation, Jim is going to show the current investing opportunities for our members and investors. He can show some great cash flow properties. The number makes sense. Even the mortgage financing itself is a unique value add. Hopefully you can talk about that as well. Will make the cash flow even better with this unique mortgage reduction program as provided by our respective lenders. Very exciting, great properties, path of growth, affordability, cash flows. That's what every investor wants. Without further ado, Jim share with us what's going on with some current investment opportunities in your various sub-markets in Florida.
Great. Thank you, Seewing. And if you saw our last presentation where we talked about why we do build to rent and the principles of our passive income approach, at least what helped me and my wife get over $40,000 in passive income, that was the first part of why we do what we do. And now these are a little bit more about the direct market fundamentals and actual properties. Seewing asked me to have actual live properties that show what we're actually creating for our investors. We have only a few rules in our passive income playbook that my wife and I designed. You got to pass our success principles that we went over and our success indicators, which we'll go over this thing of markets. Most of our successful investors, they buy 3 to 5 properties, and then every 3 to 5 years, they roll the equity, they refinance that out into new deals, whether it's more properties or something else they want to invest in. And we also have what's called a legendary family life blueprint. I think Seewing, who likes to travel with his family, and me, if you're not enjoying time with your family coupled with your passive income real estate, then you're missing something. So we like to make family a part of everything that we do. Now, there are 5 success indicators that brought people like myself and Seewing to Florida. And I was taught this by a mentor years ago. If you never want to depend on appreciation and growth, but there are ways to get in front of it, to know where it's going. And there's 5 indicators that we've always followed. That's economic growth, population growth, affordability. This is a big one where, like in San Francisco, if you look at these 5 factors, there's economic growth, there's population growth. It's a desirable city. There's not a lot of property, but affordability takes it out of the running of a great place to invest. We like to invest in our Florida markets where the average family income can afford the average price of a home. That's called a healthy affordability index. This is something huge. And when you have that, you also have cash flow, which is key. Desirability is another thing that's key. Do people want to live there? Are they moving there? That was always happening in Florida because people like to be warm and by the water. And then the pandemic actually accelerated that even more. And then healthy supply and demand. By the builder, we want to go where there's more people than houses. And right now, like in different markets that we're in, they suggest we're about 3 years behind on needed rental inventory today. So these 5 factors are very important when you're trying to find places that are poised for rental growth and value growth. A couple things on economic growth. I love this. I don't know if you guys know about Brian Relay and ITR Economics. They're really sharp on the real estate fundamentals. One of the people I follow. I love how they said this. They said, soon there's going to be 1 billion more people on the planet. 100 million of those will live in the United States. And these growth areas are going to require shelter and just be a part of the supply chain. That's what we're doing with economic growth and going to areas like Florida. That's the fastest state in growth in the country right now. And between January 2012 and June of 2021, Seewing, there were 12.3 million new American households formed, but only 7 million homes were actually built. So that is a huge deficit in new families being created and not the homes being provided, especially in high growth areas. And affordability, as I talked about, is key. So a lot of our investors that came from California, for a while, they were going to Salt Lake City and Boise, Idaho. Both very nice markets. But again, we always look for affordability. So right here, I put up Salt Lake City against one of our main markets, one of our higher growth markets in Southwest Florida. So you can see the median price right now in Salt Lake City is over $580,000. But in Cape Coral, it's just over $330,000. The median incomes are about the same and the rents are pretty close to the same. What this tells me, Seewing, again, this affordability index is what I look for. I want to go to markets where there's still more room for growth. And as you can see, being priced $250,000 under like a Salt Lake, that makes me feel really good. Now, another one of our markets, Jacksonville, Florida, our main hub market that we started our build to rent in, versus Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho, again, over 538,000. We're still under 300,000 in Jacksonville with very similar household incomes and very close in rents within $200. Again, this is something we look for in affordability index. Now, the areas that we invest in Florida are Jacksonville, Palm Coast, Ocala, Citrus Springs, Inverness, Fort Myers, Englewood, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Lehigh Acres, and Cape Coral, along with a few more submarkets in those areas. And all these areas have those 5 fundamentals that we were talking about. And the properties are behind. Now, as I told you, we do duplexes and quads and smaller single-family homes. This was a really interesting statistic that we found. There's been a shortage of new construction, but not only a shortage of new construction, Seewing, but new homes under 1,400 square feet, so those kind of smaller starter homes that most families and young couples want, those production have decreased since 2008. In fact, it's less than 10% of all new builds. So when you look at that, those starter homes and new construction, which are very desirable, people want to rent them, are not being made. And a lot of the larger national home builders don't want to make them because they're what's called higher margin builders. We're a low margin builder. We'll just do more volume. That's our method. So this is a very positive thing of supplying a need. So why did we do build to rent? Because I used to do foreclosures, bulk foreclosures. My now building partner and I used to buy them, fix them up, keep them for ourselves, work with investors, and they can be great. But we started new construction almost 10 years ago, and I don't think I'll ever put my rehab shoes back on. And there's a couple reasons why. With new construction, there's less maintenance, repairs, and turn costs. When a rental goes vacant and you have to rehab it or renovate it to get a new tenant in, I found my numbers to be much lower in price compared to older homes and much less maintenance and repairs along the way. Inventory levels in Florida right now continue to be strong. You know, when people say, gosh, the market, certain areas are flooded with inventory, you know, we in Florida, especially our markets you were talking about, Seewing, the inventory levels are still below what they were in 2019. So this is pre-pandemic when anyone's calculation showed 2019 was a normal real estate market. And we're seeing inventory levels still below 2019. We feel really good about that. Last month of May of 2023, we had our highest volume sales month since February of 2022 with over 10 million in sales. So properties are still moving at a very fast pace. And again, inventory levels are still below what the norm is. And rents are on the rise. We're still able to capture an average of over 9% increases in rents on new leases. We do our numbers for growth projections at 5%. And we're averaging closer to 10 and some years even higher. But we feel really good about the rents continuing to rise. And are people still paying? We had over 97% rent collections last month at our new construction property. This is why we do build to rent in Florida for Southern Impression Homes. Now, hurricanes, these are something that everyone talks about. Seewing, this is a video of Punta Gorda, Florida, the day after Hurricane Ian, the eye went right over it. This is it was a category 4, which is a very strong hurricane. So this film was taken the day after. And if you look at this, you see some branches down and some waters in the roads, but for the most part, the houses look okay. They look intact. The reason why is in 2004, Hurricane Charlie decimated this area. I actually had my dad's cousin living here, very sad, lots of damage. And what the government did is they changed the rules. They said, when we build back, you need to build it on higher ground with higher construction. And that's what happened. So you can see this area survived very well because of the new construction requirements that were required, unlike Fort Myers, which got totally destroyed because these homes were built in the 40s and 50s. So for new construction properties built after 2004, so everything we build is built on higher ground. It has a stronger structural design and materials. And even though we're in coastal markets, most of our properties are more than 5 miles inland with insurance companies giving you a break on insurance rates. In fact, most people are very surprised when they get their initial pro forma when they're buying a property with us and they go, wow, the insurance is a lot cheaper than I thought. The reason why is because insurance companies love our new construction properties because of these reasons right here: higher ground, stronger structural design, and most of them are 5 miles inland from the coast. For a final thing on hurricanes, we had over 278 projects in Southwest Florida at the time of Hurricane Ian hitting. We had to file insurance claims of 4 properties. And that means there's more than $5,000 worth of damage to the property. Something interesting, Seewing, on these 4 properties. Well, at the stage of construction for these 4 properties, all that was there was freestanding walls, right? What gives a property strength is tying the roof down onto the walls. That's what helps it have hurricane resistance. So what happened with the winds is these walls just fell down since they were freestanding, and we had to file insurance claims on them. But that was only on those 4 in those stage of constructions, and none of our properties had any flooding during this major hurricane. So this is something of great importance because a lot of properties get ruined by hurricanes because of flooding, not because of wind. So we feel really good about that.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, and this is very reassuring because over the years, a lot of out-of-state investors, they're all being misled by the mass media, by all the videos and national headlines that talk about all these hurricanes just destroying homes in Florida. You have to separate the realistic things versus the misconception that the general public been hearing out there. So by you showing the data about one of your properties, you addressed it in a great way. That should be very reassuring for any out-of-state investors buying through your system, the way you construct the homes. That's very, very reassuring.
I had the same thing. And so if you are buying older homes that were built at a different type of structural design and on lower ground, you're putting yourself in a risk. With our new construction, it is a government mandate that we build up at least 12 to 13 feet and use stronger structural fixtures. And that gives you a very large margin of safety.
Very good.
Florida has all these things. Again, population growth, economic growth, a good affordability index, healthy supply and demand, and desirability. People want to live there. And again, I went over in our last talk together, our typical investor wants someone to find the deal for them, get it financed. Again, Richard is a great option for that, and manage the process. You don't want to be there to build the house. You don't want to be there to manage the house. We step in and do all that for you. Our sweet spot, again, single family homes, duplex and quads, all that residential real estate that can produce cash flow. And let's go over a few live deals. Let's look at this. Now, when you decide to move forward on one of our properties, we have a team of, again, over 170 people and some great sales specialists that have worked with us for years and helped build dozens and dozens of portfolios. When you decide to start looking at properties, they'll take the time to go through these performers with you. So as you can see, we're going to go through right now a single family home. This is in the Port Charlotte area, again, Southwest Florida. And when you look at the numbers of initial investment of about $110,000 and go over to the yellow, we can go through all this in a deeper point, but you're looking at a year 1 cash on cash return with tax saving of almost 7%. And then with a 5-year hold, another $67,000 in profits, bringing you to almost a 13% IRR, internal rate of return, through 5 years. Again, we'll go through each of this and how this works and how it happens, but this is our average price point. Again, you're looking at a property of about $369, still producing cash flow. One thing that's important that we'll go through, Seewing, is we have in-house financing. And actually, if you look at that interest rate, that is not a misprint, 4.75. So we can get rates down to 4.75 and right up to about 4.99 through Richard with 30-year fixed. So that is something that you can do.
Jim, this is amazing. The investors, especially newbies, they need to understand right now the mortgage rate for people with good credit is around 7%. If an investor were to buy a rental property without a mortgage reduction program, if they buy on their own anywhere in the country, they would most likely pay a mortgage 30-year fixed rate on a rental property around 7.5% at least. With that said, you can't cash flow with such a high mortgage rate, but being part of our network, being part of your system, we get a value add, amazing mortgage rate of 4.75% or 4.99%. This is a game changer. Not only will give you more cash flow like we normally would, but even though with this lower mortgage rate, as you can see, that cash flow right here, $200 something monthly net cash flow, that is only part of the equation, Jim. You and I discussed that. There are 5 ways to make money in real estate. So for any investors, just think about one aspect of low cash flow, and you need to think long term. The rental increases always lags behind your home price appreciation, and home price appreciation has skyrocketed in 2021 and the first half of 2022. We're talking double, triple digit, quadruple digit appreciation in some markets in the past 2 years. However, you need to understand the rental increases lags behind. So what I'm trying to say, Jim, you might want to elaborate a little bit more, that the current rate that you see right here, current monthly mortgage rent in this example is, well, gross rent is $3,150. Now, we can make the argument that the $3,150 in the next few years, once the rent come back to you in the next few years, that gross rent will be higher than it is now. It depends on what neighborhood, what area. But in Florida, we're seeing some high income renters. They can come in more than willing to pay to rent these high quality homes in these high quality communities. Furthermore, inflation is our friend because inflation causes rent to increase. That's how it is. The rent, the cap rate, the cash on cash return may not be ideal short term, but it'll get better. Investors need to understand this pro forma is just first year projection, 5 to 10 year projection. When you incorporate equity growth and the tenants paying down your debts and your mortgages, and then consistent at least 5% appreciation projection, then the amazing tax benefits. You and I know the power of real estate is 5 ways at least to make money above and beyond cash flow.
We'll go through some case studies so you can see this incremental growth, because again, the cash on cash return starts, especially with new construction. You might be able to get better with an older construction, cheaper home. But what I've found is, from my own experience, a lot of the times what I have to give back in maintenance and repairs and turnover, I give back more than if I had just taken the easier approach with an easier to manage property that's going to go up like a new construction. And you can see I've gone from our single family now to our duplex. Even with our duplexes and quads now, Seewing, you can look at this property, very good area, Palm Coast, very popular coastal area. I got engaged there myself to my wife. It's a beautiful spot. You can look at some of these numbers and you are producing cash flow still. So if you look, even at $144.74 buy-in with your initial cash invested, this one is showing with some very conservative numbers, almost $800 a month cash flow.
Very good.
So you can see we are getting cash flow right off the bat by helping get the better in-house financing, by getting the best rents, by giving a discount on the property management. On this one, as you can see, your cash on cash return with the tax savings is over 10% a year, which is a great start. And then with the 5-year hold, you're close to 18% internal rate of return a year. And again, these are very conservative numbers. If you looked at the case studies that we'll go over now or in our last one, we do real estate appreciation at 5%. In Florida, especially over a 10-year span, it's normally about double that. Rental growth, well, we're hitting over 9% right now. We do rental growth at 4% for these numbers. So we stay very conservative to get these numbers. I would rather underpromise and overdeliver. That's why we do new construction with conservative numbers. But something like our duplexes, these start you off with cash flow right off the bat. You have 2 renters under one roof, and that leverages you to a higher rental yield like this property here. And then our quads. Quads are a little bit of a unicorn, as we've talked about, Seewing. They're harder to get qualified to approve to build. It's the residential property, but with 4 tenants under one roof. I like quads. They have a real power to jumping your cash flow and your direct property ownership very quickly with only using one loan. Now, of course, these are going to have a higher price for the whole building, but you get 4 units with it and your initial cash invested will be higher. However, you're cash flowing over $1,000 a month net. So as you start to get into these and you're performing a cash on cash return of over 10%, an IRR 5-year hold of 17%, these are things you can't ignore. These are some things that help leverage me forward to build up to that $40,000 a month with my properties. So quads are something that we have quite often. They do sell out, but it's something that's when you can get into, it's a great way with Richard to use one loan with Richard to get 4 properties cash flowing for you under one roof.
This 4-plex in Jacksonville, new construction at this price, only $746K.
It would be 3 to 4 times the amount in California, probably.
And not just that, I have done a lot of research. There's no other area in the country, in any of the 49 states, where you can find new construction fourplexes. That is very rare. Anywhere else in the country, most fourplexes in the country either are 100 years old, 50 years old, and they are twice the price of this unit or this building. It's just no comparison. It's just fourplex is very hard to get. It's very hard to build. The cost of construction is very high anywhere else in the country, and the numbers does not make sense. And there's a whole bunch of maintenance, and a lot of those fourplexes in other part of the country are located in C-class neighborhood, and you get lower quality tenants, lower quality neighborhoods. But in this unique product you have, it just is mind-boggling. It's just nothing like it. So it's another value add that you provide.
I feel exactly the same. That's why I call them unicorns. They're harder to find, harder to build. Most builders won't build them because, again, we believe in the Walmart approach where it's make less off of each and make up for it in volume. And we are low margin builders. So we aim to do more properties that most larger builders wouldn't do. And that's why most larger builders won't build quads, because it's not the most advantageous for them, but we know it's great for volume for us and for our investors.
Agreed.
David and Gina Nelson, this is a great example of someone. They got a big family, Seewing. They're out on the West Coast. They didn't like the numbers of the landlord laws out there. So they pulled the triggers with us years ago. And they both medical professionals. They were super busy, but wanted more time with their family. So they started investing with us about 5 years ago. They started with a good group of properties and really started to double down. And they had the exactly what we were talking about. Their purchase price and current values have gone up tremendously. The rents have gone up tremendously, which we expect maybe not at the same rate we saw over the last 5 years, but definitely continuing at a good pace. And these initial investments were very affordable for them when they first got into these properties. David and Gina Nelson today, they have just about $5,000 a month in cash flow, and they're sitting on over $800,000 in equity. For them, this gave them just enough to step back from their careers, have a secondary income coming in, and spend more time with their family. So I just wanted to make sure I gave one example with going through the properties. Is there any other questions, Seewing, of the deals that we have available?
Nothing from a high level. Everything you have addressed any and all concerns by any investors they may have, because you anticipate any number of those concerns. And so you build your built-to-rent business model. You put yourself in the shoes of a out-of-state investor. How could they feel comfortable buying your kind of properties, and what kind of concerns and issues they have? You address pretty much all of them. You understand what investors want and create a relationship with long-term investors and manage the properties, help them scale the properties. Richard and I, we talk about Richard Abani have 20 properties. You know how much time he spent managing his rental property portfolio per month? 1 to 2 hours. 1 to 2 hours per month. And I'm sure you agree, Jim, your investors that purchase through your business model can say the same thing.
Yeah, Richard's been a great client, and that's why he put the two of us together. We don't want to create that second or third job. We want to buy back your time and have residual income to enjoy the things you want to do. And that's what our model was. And remember, I was that out-of-state investor. My career started 24 years ago in Bakersfield, California. I left California because I didn't like the landlord laws, and I saw greater growth patterns in the Southeast, mainly Florida. So all the questions that you have, I've been able to answer. And the good news is, with me being several years in on Florida, you guys get to come in at a great time. You know, there's a reason why I don't do older construction properties and only do new construction, because I like our clients to be happy and to buy more properties. And that's one thing the new construction has been able to do. I don't want them spending a lot of time on a portfolio. Like Richard, I want them spending a short amount of time with a great amount of cash flow. And the new construction, high growth markets in Florida seem to be the best recipe that I've been able to find, Seewing, in 24 years of doing this.
We look forward to working with you. We have synergy, similar business models, similar philosophy, similar core value. Myself, and I've been doing this almost 20 years, and you're the perfect partner to work with. And I can't wait to introduce our members from our network to pursue your products. It's really a no-brainer. Anything else we need to share with you?
All I would say, Seewing, just like Richard, that's how Richard and I became friends many years ago. Richard was curious about Florida. Richard came and visited Florida, and we love visitors. If you have the desire, some of you don't have the time and expertise, and that's why you lean on Seewing. to do it and you won't be able to travel. But for some of you that say, we really want to see things up close and personal, great. Come visit us. We love visitors. We love for you to see the team, the projects, the management in action. That might give you the comfort that you need. We have an open door policy with visitors. So we love that. If you'd like to come and see us, you just have to set up a tour and we'd be happy to have you.
Most definitely, as we are about to conclude this presentation, am I to assume on a weekly or on a monthly basis in the various markets that you're presenting, like 7 or 8 locations in the applicable sub-markets, which you just indicated?
It's by appointment, Seewing, because people have such different schedules. The sales specialist that you work with will be able to set specialized tour dates up for where you want to go, who you want to meet with, where you want to be.
Sounds good. Moving forward, I will do a periodic update, a Zoom, a webinar with my investors. Then I will pre-screen the people who are motivated to potentially pull the trigger, and I will pre-screen the best I can. And then once they get no approval through Richard or any other lender, after I pre-screen them, then I will put them in touch with one of your sales counselors in a particular market.
That's perfect, Seewing. And another thing I know that you and I talked about offline, but I forgot to mention here, new construction sometimes can take a lot of time. Not with us. You can have a new construction property within 60 days. We are on a constant construction turn forward, meaning we're always just building and building. We're in a really good financial position to do that. So you don't have to wait a year and a half for one of your new construction properties. If you're ready to go, you can have a property in less than 60 days.
Good to know, Jim. In any given time, you have some properties in a specific location that are ready to go. The house is already completed, is ready to be sold quickly. Then the other houses you have is going through a process of being completed, like you just said. So any given time, in any given week, you have different kind of houses.
We have properties ready now. We can have properties that are ready in a few months. And if you want to schedule one out 10 to 12 months, we can do that for you. But we have properties, most people are wanting to get going within the next 90 days if they've decided. And we can have properties in all our markets for you that because we're constantly building without stopping. We have a very forward movement.
Sounds like you have a great system and looking forward to it. It's amazing to associate with your organization and looking forward to a long-term relationship for anyone involved. Anything, any last minute recap?
Real estate investing is a slow turn of the wheel at first, but it does start to snowball. And those first few properties, when you get into them and let them seed and grow, it's amazing what that can do to propel you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to say one thing. I know there's a lot of negative headlines. There's a lot of misconception and there's a lot of doom and gloom situations going out. And it's happening in the real estate market. Each investor have to really focus on their personal goals, try to ignore all the doom and gloom or the world coming to an end scenario. The housing is very resilient, it's very profitable, it's going to do very well. It's all about real estate is very local. There's no such thing as a national real estate market. Real estate is robust. The demand continue to exceed the supply at this time. Buy a good support system, buy in a specific location. In an affordable market such as the one you guys are promoting, take a long-term approach, show discipline, show commitment, stay the course, and have a good team to surround you. Like more teams, investors could be very successful. So that's my takeaway. That's my recap. Any final comment, Jim?
I agree with you totally. We have a really big team, Seewing, and we always joke, one thing that's not part of our team is the media, because in my long career now of 24 years, in 2005, when the market was topping out, you can look up and you can Google all this. All of the real estate headlines said, double-digit appreciation, no end in sight, buy now. And the fundamentals were showing it was a terrible time to buy. But in 2009, they were saying, oh, real estate's dead. It's never coming back. Proceed at your own risk, which was a wonderful time to buy. And so I always try to be contrarian to what the media is saying. So the fact that the media is confused right now and trying to, as you said, blanket the real estate market in our country as one market, that's when I always question and go, is it now a good time to buy? Because when I've found the media is telling me not to, it's usually a good time to do something. The media is not a part of our team, we joke.
Very well said, Jim Shields and Southern Impression Homes. You guys are an amazing organization. You have a great core value, similar to ours. And I just can't wait to get this ball rolling. And I'm going to prioritize my time, motivate, inspire myself and my investors to pull the trigger with you guys because you guys are authentic, credible, great track record. You take care of the client, great client service, long-term support. for our investors, what more can you ask for? Looking forward to working with your team.
Us too, Seewing. It's always great seeing you and Richard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for attending. Have a nice day. Goodbye.